This broadcast package on Clare FM is funded by the Local Democracy Reporting Scheme.
CCTV in the Shannon Municipal District, which is not just Shannon Town, it's the wider district from Newmarket-on-Fergus right across to Clare. It's an issue that comes up quite frequently with public representatives, not just myself. I know other councillors have raised it frequently. And it's about using the infrastructure that's already in place in the town park, for example, but also finding streams of sources and ways to expand that so that we are using CCTV to its maximum as a deterrent for criminality, antisocial behaviour, legal dumping. It's something that I suppose as councillors we get raised with us on a very, very regular basis. So the reason I brought the motion today, I was working with one of the local residents' associations, and they came across an interesting avenue used by a group in Ballahadreen in Roscommon. It's essentially using an external company to try and combat and to try and work around some of the GDPR issues, which seem to be some of the biggest issues inhibiting the rollout of CCTV.
So a private company liaising with the community group, is that essentially what's happening there?
Essentially that's what's happening there. It's a community group that's getting together, getting grant funding from the department, and they're rather than individually trying to combat the GDPR issues, they're getting a grant, and it's been outsourced. So I suppose the purpose of the motion really was to see could we look at doing that to the local authority? Could we get an update on the status of the Code of Practice, which is awaited from the Department of Justice, on the wider scheme, but then also to refer to the Local Community Safety Partnership, which is the new Joint Policing Committee, to see is there an avenue that we could use across the county to set up pilot programmes through that to support communities and support the local authority to try and roll out CCTV, which is the only real deterrent, I believe, in many areas for antisocial behaviour and certainly for legal dumping.
Do you have much hope based on what you heard today, or does it seem like it's a long way away? The response from the MD wasn't overwhelmingly positive.
No, look, it wasn't overwhelmingly positive. There are clear issues, frustrating issues from our perspective, but there are clear issues in relation to legislation and code of practice and GDPR, and I suppose to the general public it's excessive red tape, but it is what it is. This was an avenue that I came across that I thought, look, maybe we can find a way around this using the community groups, leveraging the scale of Clare County Council and funding from the department to try and support, even if it's on individual pilot basis. If they can do it in other counties, I don't see why we can't at least look at it. And I did ask for the motion to be formally proposed to the Local Community Safety Partnership to see if that could be done. And I know from as a member of that body, submissions were made to the Garda Service Programme for 2026 around supporting communities to roll it out. So it's just trying to work in conjunction across the board to see can we find a way, wade our way through the GDPR issues. They are doing it in other counties, so it's just to try to keep the pressure on and to try work together to keep find an avenue to
And just to really emphasise this, what types of issues are we talking about when it comes to antisocial behaviour and criminality in the Shannon MD that you believe CCTV could assist with?
Yeah, so look, I suppose we're dealing with issues in the town park, whether it be intimidation or whether it's just, and it's not necessarily all dealing with antisocial behaviour. I suppose what CCTV can do, and it's what we hear and what the research shows, is it brings a sense of community safety. It's not necessary. It can be used in criminal cases if there are antisocial behaviour, if there is criminality, if there's burglaries, if there's car thefts, that kind of stuff. But it's also just for the average person walking down the street, given that sense of safety, that they know that there's a deterrent there, and that there are CCTV, and that the area has been actively monitored. And should anything happen, that the Gardaí actually have a route to prosecution. That in and of itself is a huge deterrent for a community.
Shannon Fine Gael, Councillor Tony Mulcahy, thanks for speaking with me today. At today's Shannon MD meeting, you spoke on Councillor David Griffin's motion in relation to CCTV and the use of CCTV in Shannon to tackle antisocial behaviour and criminality. First of all, why do you think that CCTV is needed for this purpose?
Well, I actually think we should have CCTV in every public space, to be honest. I think we look at Shannon in particular, like it's not a place where you have many exits and access, like coming into the town. Roadways into the town, there's only 4. So any form of criminality, we can track people in and out, you know what I mean? That can be done. I've spoken to the Gardaí on this. Certainly the public spaces like the town park, in around the shopping centre, even though that's a private building. And I firmly believe that all, in particular, well, you see it in rural problems, it's not just urban, like, I mean, rural issues. I just witnessed a scene there this morning where a car was setting fire someplace in Dublin, up the country, mid of the day. So there's criminality everywhere, you know. But I think I've seen these in operation in other places. I've seen them. I've been in them. I'm not at liberty to say because obviously they're confidential. But I've seen the monitoring facilities that are in place in other jurisdictions. And I believe we always seem to get caught up in policy, or we're behind policy. We need to be in front of something. some of the policy. But the director outlined today, she's waiting on that policy documentation. I trust her in willing to wait to see what we get out of that and see where we go. But like all communities, in my view, in today's world, should have that. We've got a huge problem with the under 18 violence, vandals, I suppose the only word I could call them, whereby they think they can get away and do what they like. And virtually the problem is they can, I've been a great advocate, you'd have heard it yesterday at the retail, I think it was Retail Excellent Ireland Run, the Harbour Association, robbery, theft in retail units, people going in pulling stuff off shelves, attachment of earnings. Now this is something I was involved in going back in 2016, but I firmly believe that's another arm and another string to our bow. You went to town at night, you break the window above an Ennis in the shop, you pay for the window. You wouldn't be too keen to be going out the following week to be done it.
We are hearing, of course, about so many issues with the legislation, and as you say, how there's a sense that we're behind the legislation, but you outlined during the meeting that other local authorities are doing this, so this is in use in other areas, and you've asked for the local authority to perhaps liaise with other local authorities around the country to find out what they're doing differently and maybe what this local authority can do better.
Yeah, well, 100%. We actually don't have to go too far. It's only in the road, 10 miles inside the road in Limerick, so we don't really got to go. We don't have to go too far.
And it is being used there for that purpose.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So we need to engage with the DC. How would we do it? And maybe we don't need, we could. I think certainly the director outlined there about the data monitoring is being done by outside agencies in some jurisdictions. And I mean, maybe we don't need to build all the data. Maybe we can outsource the monitoring side of that. Get the cameras in and somebody else can monitor them. Because I can absolutely assure you that what I saw is monitoring 6-7 districts in the Limerick region, and there's work on the way. Now, and again, at the end of the day, this is primarily for the police. The only people that can enforce it on this are the police. But if they get to documentary evidence and recordings, but then that gives them another arm, to their operation whereby they can prosecute people on the basis of that information. And I think that's critical. I mean, there's only one force at all in this country. That's on Garda Síochána. And all the support we can give them, we need to give them.
This broadcast package on Clare FM is funded by the Local Democracy Reporting Scheme.